transition over. Okay, give me a couple of words there, Dan.
Check.
Yeah, I'm
Yo.
getting audio levels from you. So
All right, nice.
this has always been an issue that like so me and my wife will play video game, like she streams like that, she'll do that like on a regular basis, and her live streams, for some reason, it never plays Discord audio, like through, like it took like a really long time to figure it out. So I'm gonna really quickly, everyone, if you're in the chat, Ghost and Zim the Despot, just let me know if you can actually hear Dan. I don't want to like get all the way into the live stream and then
Yeah,
it'll be
hopefully I
that you
don't.
literally can't hear him at all.
Audio issues are such a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna see. I just don't want to get too far into it, and then, but yeah, this is like my home office, and you can see like my collection of Epic Collection stuff over here in the corner. That's where I keep all of my that Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi box right down there. I actually think this might be the first time of me showing my face on camera for Bar's Basement, but whatever. So that box over there is where I have like all of my Star Wars Legacy comics that I just got. Dane, I don't know if I sent you a photo of that or not, but my wife got
I
me
don't
the
think so.
entire run
Oh hell yeah!
for my birthday, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like I saw somebody was selling it on eBay, and I jokingly sent it to like a group chat that we all had like as friends, and I was like, "Yeah, if anyone just has like a cool $500 to spend on this," so they all like pooled together money and bought it for me without me
That's
realizing it.
awesome.
Like I like almost bought it on my own. It was so close. I was like, should I spend this amount of money on this shit? And then I noticed that like the listing was gone. I was like, oh, okay, well, somebody must have bought it, so whatever. I lost my opportunity. Who cares? And turns out they got it for me. So there we go.
That's dope. Are they hard to like come by? I'm assuming so.
Yes, like you can get like issue 1 of Star Wars Legacy. Sometimes it goes for like $200. So somebody was
God
selling like the
dang,
entire
dude.
run on its own for like $500 total, and some like they're all in excellent condition. Like I'm super hyped on like how they all turned out. I think it's issue like 37 or some shit. There's a Mandalorian in that issue who is like a fan favorite, even though he's only ever in one issue, and he's got like the like a black and gold like Mandalorian outfit. He looks dope, and he's not in any other stories, but just the way that he looks, people were super hyped on it. So like his issue at times will sell for like $100 to $200.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dude, we talked about this last time. I gotta read those legacy comics because I have not read. And I'm pretty sure after we spoke, I'm pretty sure they're on Comixology because that's how I read stuff is Comixology.
I think they're, and if you have Marvel Unlimited, they're also on there.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I should make a note for everybody if Dan sounds extra thick on this stream. He's got an audio issue going on, so he sounds normalish to me, but his voice still sounds more baritone than normal.
Yeah,
So
hopefully I don't sound like an extra thick boy, but
you're
yeah,
sounding
hopefully
a
we
little
figure
thick.
that out.
You sound like you're going through molasses a little bit. So, what I got going on my screen here is where I'm just gonna play Slow Tour in the background just to have some form of visual interest here, like while we talk about Book of Boba Fett. So my plan is to get back to uploading more content. For those of you who don't know, I run my own business. I run a video production company, and the summer is just like absolutely like bananas for me in general. It's like when our busy season, so that's why we've had a dry spell of me uploading things. Is just because I just literally don't have time. So here we are. But the goal is to start uploading things again. I want to keep having conversations with Dan. Dan's currently like blowing up on TikTok, YouTube, like Instagram, all those things. Like I've noticed, I'm like, holy shit, he's getting some views, man. I'm like, holy hell, you're killing it, man.
Hard work, hopefully paying off.
And it definitely seems so, man. I was like, damn, Dan like jumped up there in subs. Uh, Fair enough. You need a semi-decent net connection to play Tor in any reliable way. Sorry, I'm also reading off chats if you can't see those in your end, Dan. Uh,
Yeah, I'm trying. So before I moved, the internet I had was pretty terrible, and I
hmm.
didn't have an issue playing the Old Republic.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I've only ever had like really bad connection issues when I also lived like in a town of like maybe 300 people. So same. But uh, Ghost, to answer your question, I am an avid fan of SWOTOR, so I play it all the time. If you ever want to play, just let me know. Let me know if you're in the same server as me, and we'll get going. But
so before we dive into the Book of Boba Fett, what class do you typically rock? I was always gunslinger.
I usually it's either the Sith Inquisitor or Jedi Knight. I usually go Sith Inquisitor just because I like to just stealth through things. Like I play SWTOR purely for the story aspect of it. Like I don't really play it as an MMO, so I'm like, all right, let's just get through like these enemies. Like I don't want to have to like deal with this shit or whatever. So yeah, might want to up your bit rate just a bit if possible. It's a tiny bit grainy. Oh yeah, I can definitely see that. Eh, is what it is, I suppose. For those of you who don't know, I am using my my 8K camera as a webcam, so that might also be an issue. I own a cinema camera, so I feel like that might also be the reason why it's just like you're just giving me too much information. But super. I'll give like a really quick introduction for folks who maybe like aren't super familiar with Barb's Basement. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian, and welcome back to Barb's Basement. This podcast I have lovingly named Now This Is Podcasting. Obviously, it's a joke on a really dumb line from The Phantom Menace, but I'm here with Dan from Star Wars Transmissions, really good fellow nerdy homie of mine, and he does a lot of canon videos, like a lot of canon shorts. Because you're like a big canon guy, right? Like you're a big Disney canon dude.
Yeah, I do. I like both Legends and canon, but
Mhm.
primarily at this point, I'm usually diving into canon stuff.
Yeah, I see. A lot of people. I feel like the usual YouTube algorithm for Star Wars stuff has been uh like the YouTube Legends stuff was like a huge deal for a long time. But I feel like as we get further and further into Disney canon, more people are viewing Disney canon things. More people are being more like accepting of Disney canon stuff. So I feel like you really, dude, you're killing it. Like I feel like you gained like 1,000 like subscribers like overnight when I wasn't looking or something like that.
It was like right around Christmas time, man. Like all of a sudden, I went from like 700 subscribers to now it's like 20, almost 2,500, which
You're
was
crushing it, man.
awesome.
You're crushing it. Yeah,
You know,
well deserved.
to go back to what you were saying before, and I'm pretty sure we've talked about this. I totally understand why if someone has pretty much their bread and butter was like Legends, and then Disney purchased Lucasfilm, why that could be upsetting for Legends now being considered Legends. But there are so many awesome canon stories that I feel like people just disregard just because it's canon.
Yeah, they
That I
just sleep on
wish
it.
people would just, yeah, not sleep on certain stuff.
I mean, we not to get too far off like the original topic of this episode, but I feel like the High Republic stuff, like I think we talked about this last time. Like it's gotten a lot of uh really bad press, I feel, and it's pretty undeserving. Like I feel like
Yeah,
the God, what was the name of the last High Republic book? Rising
the
Storm,
Fallen Storm.
the
So
one
the
before Fallen Star.
the Rising Storm.
That might be like one of the best Star Wars books I've ever read,
Dude,
and it's
it's
so good.
have you read the Star yet?
I'm like halfway through it, so don't spoil it yet.
I will not spoil anything, but I have been reading books for a very, very long time,
Mhm.
and no book has ever made me cry before. Dude, the end of the of Fallen Star, I was literally like in tears. It is fucking sorry, I didn't mean to curse. It is so damn good, man. It is such a phenomenal book.
My buddy Zach, who's I think I told you before, like he was like originally his family, like the Barb's Basement like name, like the YouTube channel, comes from his mom's name is Barb, and we like grew up like having nerdy conversations in his parents' basement or whatever. And he like read all the High Republic, all three of those like main High Republic books like super quick, and he was like, I don't understand geode, and I was like, you'll understand him like as things go along. Like,
Oh, I love Geode,
yeah,
man.
that I was like, he's like a comedic character. I was like, I feel like
Yeah.
most people don't understand that he's supposed to be funny. Like that's the whole point.
Yeah. I feel like it was almost like with the hate or the heat that he was getting, it was just kind of like, oh, this is, I don't want to say low hanging fruit, but this was an easy character to pick on just because it's his appearance is simply just a rock slab, but he's
Yeah.
such a brilliant character, and it's done. I feel like Claudia Gray has done a great job of using him as comedic relief, and she does it in such a fantastic way.
Yeah, and like like it's Kevin Scott that wrote Rising Storm, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. He
Like
wrote Rising Storm.
absolutely killed it. Like I
Yeah.
like the best way that I can like equate it to is like kind of almost like a Game of Thrones style. Like I mean all of like the High Republic books are like kind of written in that same vein, like where it's multiple different
And that
stories being told at the same time, jumping around from perspective to perspective. And he really puts me on edge, like something might go wrong any minute.
and that's one of the things absolutely love about the Fallen Star. Like you'll start to see as the book progresses, it's
Mm.
the pace is going to pick up even more, and you're going to be going. I love that each of the main books have done that, where you're getting the story told and you're having the perspective of multiple characters. But yeah, Fallen Star, dude, just wait. By I think it's like around the halfway point, it really the pacing really starts to pick up even more. I feel like the pacing in the beginning is pretty great, but
Mm.
even it gets even more intense as you progress in the book. It's so good.
It was like my sort of the thing that like kind of like Light of the Jedi, I'm not gonna lie, like honestly did bore me a little bit. Like I was like, oh god, can we just like get to like the thing now? But I definitely did not have that problem in the second book, but I feel like my buddy Zach was like, yeah, it kind of like took a while to get into like the whole crux of the story. I think that he was just basing it on the fact that it's basically just a disaster happening throughout the entire book. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
the whole plot is I don't want to spoil anything, but it's just like something going wrong in the entirety of the book. And I
yeah,
think that's like what his big problem was with the first book was that it just seemed like it was all one thing. But I was like, that's kind of the point of the High Republic is that it starts off everything squeaky clean. Like everything's
yeah.
great. All of the, the Jedi are at like the peak of their Jedi-dom, and then everything goes wrong all at once. And the High Republic comics are intensely good. I love them.
Have you read? It came out last month, and I think it's only going to be 2 issues. Oh God, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the Marchion
Marchion Row,
Row.
yeah. I
Have you read the? I think it's Eye of the Storm. I think it's what it's
Yep,
called.
yep. I read the first one, yeah, and
I really liked
like
it.
his like home planet that he's from, I was like, it's interesting like how like they developed like from a sociological standpoint, like
Yeah,
where they were like kind of tree hugger type people, and then as time went on, they just became like super hard, and they're all just like screwing each
yeah,
other over.
dude.
Not to spoil Eye of the Storm for anybody that hasn't seen it, but Zim the Despot writes, I came across someone trying to headcanon the High Republic characters into Legends. Jedi Knight 33 is his name in Discord. Not to call out Jedi Knight 33, but he made appearances on Scoundrels Cantina a few times. I think that... I mean, if you really want to headcanon in the High Republic, I feel like you could. Um, I think that a lot of people like assumed that the High Republic like wouldn't be, I guess, as like edgy as some things that were in Legends. But I think Dan, you can like attest to this. A lot of just really terrible stuff happens to a lot of the people in those books. I think that it's been enough time that we can kind of spoil what happens to Loden Greatstorm, right?
I would. Yeah, because what Light of the Jedi came out was like over a year ago now, and I think the Rising Storm came out like last June or came out last summer.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
like that's fair enough to spoil that then. So at the end of Rising Storm, it's so heartbreaking. Like Bell Zetterfer, Loden Greatstorm's Padawan, finally reunites with him after like all of this time. He's like just being tortured for like so long by the Nihil, and like it's like this big triumphant moment. And it's like, oh, they're finally back together again. And then he dies. he's in front of him, he just turns to ash. It's like such an upsetting like a moment in that book. And seeing have you been reading Trail of Shadows?
Yes, dude. I was just about to
Shit,
say,
so
seeing
good.
that, yeah, so good, and like, and you, I'm pretty yeah, I think it's in Rising Storm where they talk where you get scenes of like Markion Road torturing Loden Greatstorm and basically forcing him to stay awake for like days on end,
Yeah, that's
just to
some
kind
real
of,
like nightmare fuel.
yeah.
That's like the stuff of my absolute worst nightmare.
I
Uh
and dude, like Fallen Star, like it's going to get real, man. I promise you. When you finish it, you have to let me know because I really want to know what your thoughts are. Because, dude, but I like could not put that book down. I read it so quick, and it is not.
a
It is
good
not a
time.
happy-go-lucky book. Yeah, it is like a gut punch after gut punch.
Well, I could definitely tell like towards like the latest issues of the High Republic, like something's definitely not right with God, I keep wanting to say Karen Travis. What's the author? Jesus Christ. What's the name of the main Jedi from Out of the Jedi? Like I said,
Charles Soule.
no. What's the main the blonde Jedi?
Oh, Avar Chris.
Avar Chris. I was telling Dan earlier I only ate this morning and all I had was like 2 eggs and a piece of toast. So I'm like running on empty here. But I could definitely tell like things are about to go very bad for Avar Chris. Like she's just not having a good time. At the like one of the later issues of the High Republic, I'm like, she's going fucking
Yeah,
crazy.
man. Yeah, that I don't want to spoil it, but yes, her and her and Kiev with that was really cool. I like that a lot.
Oh yeah, Kiev is like for sure one of my favorite Jedi of the new era, like for sure.
Yeah, I like her. I really like Belle. I also really like Elzar Mann's character a
Oh, dude,
lot, and
Elzar
especially
man, holy shit.
yeah, especially with because his part in Rising Storm was really great, and I really liked what happens to him in Fallen Star. So yeah, Elzar Mann's been awesome. I don't Skier's awesome. Geode is awesome. Liak Shiazi is super funny. I feel like I don't know. I feel like there's so many really good characters in the High
Hmm.
Republic.
Elzar man, I think that his part in the Rising Storm where he uses the dark side might be my favorite description of the dark side.
I loved it too, man.
Like where he's like in his mind he's saying that to do what I just did using the light side of the force, he would have felt like drained. He would have felt like he needed to fall asleep for like 2 weeks. And using the dark side, like it made him feel invigorated, like he could keep doing it. And I think I think we may have talked about this in like the last time we talked. Is that what I like about the idea of the dark side is that it's addictive. It's corrupting because it's addictive. Like
Yeah.
tapping into it makes you want to tap into it more, and that's sort of like what like messes you up as a Jedi. You know what I mean? So here, like seeing Elzar Mann do that, and like the funniest part about I shouldn't say the funniest part, but I find it like funny that he had like a one night stand and it just
Yeah,
ruined his
right?
life. It just
Yeah.
like completely messed him up. I love it.
Yeah, I think too, like one of my favorite things about, and as we get more and more stories, you're seeing it progress more and more. Just seeing how this is we're slowly transitioning from
Hmm.
the Jedi being at the peak of their like Jedidom or whatever, their golden era,
Yeah.
transitioning that then to them in the prequels when they're like super like rigid in how they view the Force and how they're doing things throughout the galaxy, and you're seeing like how you're seeing how they slowly get to that point. I love that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I mean, like, I know that it's not going to be like a sudden like downfall of like boom, all of a sudden the Jedi are like super religious. I mean, they are religious. That's like their religious group or whatever. But I don't think they're going to be like overnight super dogmatic. So like, I'm curious to see. It's like Yoda's there for all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, wouldn't Yoda kind of? I mean, I guess he is aware of the Jedi's issues, like even in the prequels. So
Yeah, I'm trying
I
to
don't know.
I know this was the authors have talked about this. I think it was Daniel Jose Older might have recently talked about this. I know I saw an interview recently where they spoke about it,
Mhm.
where basically like he kind of wasn't fully aware of it. Like when you're in it, it might be a little bit hard to see. And then once it gets to the point where, the Jedi Order has been destroyed, then it's like, oh yeah, I
Like
was
once you
wrong.
notice, it's too late.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Um, I correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't they like completely moving away from the High Republic, like the set of High Republic characters that we have now for Phase Two?
I had no clue that that was going to happen until recently. So yeah, I think Fallen Star might be the last, and don't quote me on this, but I think this might be the last book that we're getting until phase two, or at least like the main adult novels.
Mhm.
And it's going to take place. I think I saw somewhere where it might take place like 100 years prior, which would actually be kind of cool because I think it'd be dope to see more, like learn more about Asgar Row, like how they kidnapped Mari Santeca.
Yeah, and
But
like the
yeah,
fact that she's like related to Lars Santeca, I'm like, okay, what's going on
yeah,
there? So
yeah. So yeah, they're like a super wealthy family.
yeah. Backtracking really quick to, I think that Zim said something to me here. I don't know, Ghost. I think the Disney is kind of getting why some of the EU content is popular, like Fate of the Jedi, and it was edgy and people just ate it up. Yeah, I feel like Disney's start like things are finally starting to get fleshed out, which I feel like was one of the really big issues with obviously right when they took over Star Wars. There was just like literally nothing, and like they were really afraid to dive into new concepts or anything before the sequels like finally got started. So like those like the Aftermath book and all those things, like they weren't really diving too much into the state of the galaxy because they wanted it to be fleshed out. Um, and this will be a nice transition into the Book of Boba Fett stuff. Is I thought that Book of Boba Fett was going to potentially bring in more of like that grit back into the Star Wars universe that like later Star Wars Legends like content really had a lot of that like edge and grit to it. Like Legacy, super edgy. Dark Times, very edgy. Dan, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a dude in Dark Times eats somebody else's wife and kid. So
No, I'm not. That
like
is
that level, like
ridiculous.
that was too much. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like that was too much. But I thought the Book of Boba Fett was going to be something completely different. I want you to get into it first because like you're more of like a canon aficionado than I am. So give
I
me like your general thoughts.
so I'm gonna preface this with saying any Star Wars is better than no Star Wars. I feel like it's like with coffee, like any coffee is better than no coffee.
Hmm.
So I say that because even though I wasn't like a super, even though I don't think the Book of Boba Fett is like the greatest Star Wars story that we've gotten, I still enjoyed it for what it is. But I feel like it felt like lackluster at moments. I almost felt like the the story didn't know where the writing, it didn't know where it was going, and then it just kind of like found its footing at the end somehow. Like I know a lot of people were upset with the flashbacks and I in the first couple episodes, and I actually didn't mind them because I actually felt like they helped add context to where Boba Fett's mind is at that point in the story, which in the present was 9 EBY. But then
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like certain things we don't know his full motivations. Like one of my things about the finale is with him and Cad Bane. Cad Bane says something like, "I still can't figure out like what your play is here, what your motives are here." And Boba Fett made a comment, something to the effect of like, "These are my people." And my wife and I, we paused and we're like, but what, how? We haven't seen anything that like shows us that this Mos Espa is his people. We're just being told that, and I know it's supposed to we're supposed to get the sense of like his time with the Tuscans really showed how important it became to be a part of a tribe, but I did not get that sense at all the city of Mos Espa. And I think part of that is because of the fact that we wound up breaking off from Boba's story and explored Din and Grogu, which was to me the best, basically the best parts of the season.
Yeah, and it didn't even involve Boba Fett, which is
Yeah,
probably a part of the problem.
his and I saw someone. Oh God, what's the YouTuber's name? Heavy spoilers. His channel is awesome, and he had made a comment about if they would have marketed the show a little bit better, I think it would have been more well received. And I do agree to some extent. And he had mentioned they would have marketed this season more as like a Game of Thrones type of story. I think it would have been, or he was saying he thinks it would have been more accepted. And I think to some degree, yeah. But I think the season finale is where they kind of lost me, because if going into the finale, I was definitely thinking like, yeah, this is awesome, but they've got a lot to wrap up here, and I feel like the finale didn't fully wrap everything up completely for me.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give like a really quick summary of my. I share a lot of the same sentiment as you. I stayed up until 2 a.m. or whatever it is that they release it on Disney Plus, and I watched the first episode. And those who don't know, I'm married, and my wife was like sort of awake because I'm like a night owl, so I'll stay up until like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and watched the entire first episode. And I said out loud, "Was that it?" I was like, "Was that really like all this first episode was?"
I'm trying to remember what happens.
That's the problem. That's
What
the
happens in the
problem.
first episode? I don't even
He
remember.
crawls out of the Sarlacc pit,
Okay, yep.
and I think that's like when the Tusken Raiders like take him prisoner.
Okay, yep, that's right.
So I should say, uh, I am Native American, and obviously I'm aware that I would never get any representation in Star Wars because Native Americans don't exist in Star Wars. So like I don't need that, but I really have like an appreciation for like indigenous cultures and stuff like that. Like not even just like Native American stuff. Like obviously Tamawar Morrison, he's Maori, so he's like an indigenous New Zealand man. So I really liked that they showed the Tusken Raiders like culture. Like they weren't just like brutes who were just going off shooting people while they were pod racing or whatever. They had like their own customs, their own cultures, and like they so that stuff did interest me just like on a anthropological level, I guess, because I am Native American and like I feel like a lot of people kind of misunderstand Native American cultures and whatever. So that was cool to see or whatever. But that's sort of the extent of my interest in like those first like 3 or 4 episodes. I was like, all right, well then the Tusken Raider stuff was cool. Okay, so where do we go from there? And then transitioning into the Luke and Grogu and Din Djarin stuff, I will say that I never thought that in my life I would see Ahsoka Tano standing next to Luke Skywalker.
Never, right?
So that was pretty fucking cool. I'm not gonna lie.
That was so awesome.
That was like a pretty cool like little experience. Like that's seeing like Luke do Luke stuff. It that was sort of my main criticism of the sequels in general was I just wanted to see like the new Jedi Order. I wanted to see Luke doing something, um, something where he's like a teacher and he's shaping his own Jedi Order. Because I'm a pretty big fan of the new Jedi Order series. I know the Yuuzhan Vong are like a little bit controversial with a lot of people, but I liked seeing like how his Jedi Order eventually shaped up, like what their philosophies were, yada yada. So I was pretty excited to see him doing some stuff, and I'm sure that you've probably heard the same complaint online, Dan. So I'll mention it here. I do find it bizarre that Luke gives him an ultimatum, like the same way that like the old Jedi would, where you're either a Mandalorian and you have your dad essentially, or you're a Jedi. Like you don't really have a choice.
Yeah, someone made a comment on one of my videos about that, and my only thought to that was, from a storytelling standpoint, is because we know what happens with Luke's Jedi Order,
Yeah,
and that's why he gave him that ultimatum. Because if he stays with Luke,
he's got to die.
he's got to die,
Yeah.
right? If he goes with Din, there's way more freedom for where Grogu's story can go. So that's the only thing that I could think of. But yeah, you're 100% right. That was the person that made the comment was like, Luke's toxic ass giving him that ultimatum. It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of true. Like, that's very much like the old Jedi. Like, you either do this or you're out, kind of a thing.
Yeah, so
But
like I
yeah,
was
my
a little
thought is
disappointed in that.
it's just the decision was to do that because of what winds up happening to Luke's Jedi Order. At least that's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand all of that from a storytelling perspective, but because for those of you who don't know, I think a lot of you understand, like, I'm not the biggest fan of the sequel trilogy. I will say that out of all the sequels, and I feel like this is sort of becoming a more popular opinion, that I think that Last Jedi is the best one. Not necessarily because I love like the direction that it takes, but because at least it's a story. It's its own thing. Like they actually decided to make a bold decision with Star Wars. It's not just episode 4 again, and it's not like the nostalgia trip that it is episode 9. So episode 8 for me by default is the best one. So knowing like the conclusion of what happens to Luke's Jedi Order and like knowing that if Grogu stayed, he would die. I kind of knew that he was going to choose
Yeah.
Din or whatever. But I would be lying if I said that I wasn't disappointed. Like watching the show, I was like, "Oh shit, this is so cool!" Like seeing Luke
Right.
being Luke, and like it's so awesome. And my buddy Zach, he says, "But I know where this goes, and I still don't like it." Like he knows how the story ends for Luke, and I was like, "But just disconnect your brain from that for a second, just for like a minute, and just watch it as it is." But somebody just sent me a guild invite randomly. Sure, whatever, I'll accept.
I think you and I talked about this in one of our conversations, but like with the sequels, when the sequels trilogy was announced, I literally said to my wife, I hope Luke, Leia, and Han are not in them. I wanted them to have no part of the
Yeah.
sequel trilogy. And then when they were in, I was like, all right, whatever. And then once the sequels ended, I was like, I don't want to see any more like live action stuff with any legacy characters. I want it to just be all new characters. And then when Luke showed up at the end of season 2, Amanda was like, yo, I am all on board now with
Yeah.
like, I didn't realize how awesome it could be to see Luke like post Return of the Jedi just totally kicking ass. And so I say that because when we go to Luke on whatever planet that is in, what was it, episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, dude, I was like just straight up crying like a baby for like 20 minutes. I was emotional overload because like I'm so happy. Like I felt like a little kid.
Oh yeah.
That first like 25 minutes, I felt like a little kid watching Star Wars again. Like it was incredible, and the that made me feel like, man, I didn't realize how awesome these stories could be with Luke and how much I actually do want to see badass Luke in
Hmm.
Star Wars stories.
And I think that's what my whole issue with it was. Is like I knew where Luke eventually ended up in Legends. Like I knew how. I feel like a lot of people like they will say that Luke was very overpowered, but that's true to an extent. It's true in some areas. It's false in some other areas. But I just wanted to see a new version of the Jedi Order. Like I wanted to see a Jedi Order that didn't have all of the faults of the prequel trilogy era, because I
Yeah.
feel like that's kind of the point of the prequel trilogy is that obviously the faults of the Jedi are ultimately kind of what was their downfall,
Yep.
and the Return of the Jedi is kind of supposed to be like the returning of like a new Jedi Order. So even knowing how it ends up for Luke, that stuff is still enjoyable for me. But if I think about it too much, it still ruins it. So And I had to ask you about, what did you think about Luke passively aggressively putting Grogu in an X-wing and sending him by himself to Tatooine?
So my wife made a really
Yes, go Sam on Starforge.
awesome comment to me today that it never even dawned on me.
Mhm.
She was like, there is what I find it hard to believe that R2 would just leave Grogu with some random person that he has no clue who this woman is,
Mhm.
and then just dip and have no clue if Grogu gets to where he's supposed to go, to the person he's supposed to go to. And I was like, wow, I never even thought about that, but that's actually a very good point. And now I feel like that's been one of my, especially the finale, just some things felt like it just didn't feel right. I don't know. Um, After my wife said, I was like, yeah, that's actually a great point. But with that said, in the moment of watching it, as soon as I saw, because I'm trying to remember, I don't think you see the X-wing initially. I think it's like you see the top of R2's dome, or you might not even see his dome. It
Mhm.
just might be like whatever you do. They give like the quick hint that it's R2. I was like, oh my god, yes, it's R2. He's dropping off Grogu, and I got so freaking excited. And I
Mhm.
love, is it Amy Sedaris? I think the actress's name. I love
Yeah.
her, and I feel like she does such a great job playing Pelimato. So I really like that scene. But yeah, after my wife said that, I was like, man, that's actually a really good point. How, and then like, does R2 just dip and assume that she's gonna take him to Din and like trust him? I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah,
So I go ahead.
it is like funny to me to think that Luke is just like, all right, man, well, screw you then, bye, and he just
Yeah,
sends him to
peace out,
Tatooine by
man. Good
himself.
luck.
Yeah, screw. I'm glitched into the map here, so if anyone's watching the stream,
So I do want to ask you not to go back to what you were talking about being Native American. I absolutely loved Chapter 2, specifically because of the Tusken Raiders.
Mhm.
And I had mentioned this like after watching the finale yesterday. My favorite aspects of this season were the Tuskens, Din, Grogu, and Luke. And I was bummed after in chapter 3 when we find out that they're killed off. And I remember my wife and I talked about this from in between chapter 2 and chapter 3, reading on Twitter people that are Native American and indigenous saying like, yeah, this is awesome, but my concern is the story's going to follow the stereotypical trope where we're going to find out that they're going to get murked in the next
And
episode
then
or
boom.
whenever, and then yeah, they're all slaughtered. So how did you feel when that happened?
I mean, to me, they were the most interesting because I can understand the plot device of why Boba Fett's kind of like he's a lot softer, obviously, in Book of Boba Fett. Like, then
Hmm.
you would initially think that Boba Fett would be, especially after
Yeah.
like reading like the Bounty Hunters comic, where he's just like
Oh
blowing
yeah.
people's
Right.
brains out without asking any
Yeah.
questions, and then seeing him in the show where he's compromising or whatever. I mean, I can understand the plot thread that the reason why he is softer is because he spent time with Tusken Raiders and they welcomed him in. They kind of softened his edges. He kind of found a family or whatever. But it just wasn't enough time to kind of establish to me why Boba Fett would change so much.
I agree,
So
and I think that's one of my biggest gripes with this series is that I'm assuming I don't know, maybe we're gonna
thanks,
get a
Ghost.
season two, but I feel like it was just they did not develop storylines long enough, and I
Yeah,
think you're right because I think that's the whole point of this season, right? Is we're supposed to see how he goes from this hardened bounty hunter that just straight up doesn't care about anyone. He learned from his father to only care about himself and his reputation, and he's super hardened to
hmm
now he almost dies and he winds up being saved by this Tuscan tribe and they take him in and he now instead of being this lone wolf, he sees the tribe as more important.
yeah.
But getting from that point, getting from where we see him as a hardened individual to that point, I feel like they left. There was some more steps that needed to be taken for it to really
Stick.
stick. Yeah,
So to get back to your kind of original question of like how do I feel about essentially like indigenous representation in the show like getting killed off. I saw it coming. Like my first thought was they're introducing these characters to kill them off, which I think is pretty lame. Like I don't know if you're familiar with the term fridging, but
No, I'm not.
for those of you who don't know, and just a real quick side note, Ghost, I'm assuming you're sending me 100 million credits in the mail, so I'm gonna be looking out for that. But backtracking back to the original point is, so the term fridging comes from, it's a Green Lantern comic book. I'm a big Green Lantern guy, but growing up, I would read tons of DC comics. So in one of those issues, uh, Green Lantern's girlfriend at the very beginning of one of his runs is killed and her body is stuffed in a fridge. And the reason why people find an issue with it is like fridging is it's a non-character. It's a minority or a woman who is killed off just to give somebody a plot point. Give that as much validation as you want to give it. Like give that as much thought as you want to give it. That's not a political statement for me. That's more of, it is kind of a lazy trope in storytelling to introduce a character who's a non-character just to kill them off to give the main character motivation. So seeing the Tusken Raiders in those episodes, I was like, they're just gonna fridge an entire like group of Tusken Raiders just to give Boba Fett some form of motivation in the show that he hasn't gotten so far. Because if you think about it, there really is no villain to this season. Like the Pikes, I
That's a
guess,
good
are the
point.
villain,
The
but
Pikes are, I guess, is like, and I saw someone say this, like, is Cad Bane the villain? I mean, I guess.
dude, that's what I was
Two
thinking. Like when they
episodes.
introduced him, I was like, why is he not the villain for the entire season? Like, why would you not why would he not be the person who kills off the Tusken Raiders, and he's in the show throughout the entire thing?
Dude, that is an excellent point. And my wife and I were talking about this. I wonder if this is because the series was primarily, I'm pretty sure it was all written by Favreau. But as I'm saying this, didn't Favreau write all of Mando? Where my thought is that like Favreau isn't the super like Star Wars nerd, and like Filoni is, and I know
Yeah,
he's talked about that with Mandalorian, is that Filoni has been able to help him with the minutia of Star Wars lore, and I don't know how much Filoni had a hand in this season, and it would make sense if he did not have a big hand in the story of this season, other than the episode that he directed, which was incredible, Chapter 6.
it's weird that Dave Filoni is relatively new to live action stuff. Like he directed like a couple episodes in season 2 of Mandalorian, and I think it was season 2 of Mandalorian.
Yeah, I think I know he did that. He directed the episode where Ahsoka appears.
Yeah, like say what you want about Dave Filoni, like as a Legends fan, and I know that a lot of the people who watch my channel are Legends fans, and we have like a lot of complicated emotions about Dave Filoni because of the Clone Wars series. He at least understands Star Wars. Like he gets the point of it. Like he understands, even if he's like creating new lore and he's kind of ignoring legend stuff, at least he understands like what would get fans excited. So his episodes of this season, in hindsight, are the only things that I liked from the entire show. So I, without getting too far off of just like our general review of the show, uh, those first three, like episode 2 is really the only one of Boba Fett's episodes that I really liked. It's the only one that I really
I
cared about.
I agree with that. Yeah, one in episode. I also think too. I'm not a big Robert. I've learned that I'm not a big Robert Rodriguez
Oh
fan at
my
all.
god, thank you. I'm so happy somebody else said it.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. Personally, I don't think he's a very good director. So like
Mm.
episode 1, I thought was very weak. Episode 3, I thought was kind of fun. I know some people weren't happy about the scene with Boba Fett going into like the kitchen of Jabba's palace. I actually enjoyed that scene. But yeah, I think
I found
of
it funny
those
that droid
first,
killed itself because it was so
I
afraid
know,
of Boba
dude.
Fett. That was pretty
Um,
funny.
episode 2 though, I completely agree. Episode 2 was definitely my favorite of the first 3. And then what happens in episode 4? Let me pull up Disney
Dude, that's a good question.
Disney Plus. I don't, was it, wait, is it episode 4 where he goes to Jabba's palace? It might be episode 4 where he goes to Jabba's palace.
I feel like it must have been sooner than that. That's just like based off of like my gut feeling.
All right, so
Um,
chapter 4 is where he goes to Jabba's palace, and he like there's the like General Grievous cooking droid. So that's chapter
oh yeah,
4.
shit. Yeah, that was a big meme on Reddit for a minute or two.
Yeah, chapter 3 is that's right. That's when the Tuskens we find out wind up getting
They
killed.
get fridged.
And then yeah, and then the Water Baron, and he gets the mods.
Oh, that water baron also like I love that. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Barry, or if anybody in the audience likes the show Barry. It's an
I
HBO
really
show.
like that actor a
Oh my,
lot.
I love that guy. Like he's excellent in Barry, but he just does not fit. Like for me personally, he just doesn't fit in the Star Wars universe. Like
I was
his
very
mannerisms, his
surprised when I
acting,
saw him. I agree.
because
I was
he is like
"Whoa,
a
this
character
guy's in it?"
actor. Like he's known for being like kind of like a Weasley, like kind of guy. Like you know how I don't know if you're familiar with the dude who plays Kingpin in like Marvel and stuff like
Yes,
that.
yeah. Oh, something
Vincent D'Onofrio. Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah,
Like he's also a character actor. Like he's known for, like he's not like Brad Pitt or wherever. Well, he'll just like be whatever role in whatever movie. He's also the alien from Men in Black, which I find to be hilarious. But so going on like that same vein of not feeling like he fit in. That's my personal opinion. How do you feel about the mods?
I thought that they were kind of cool. I
Mm.
know a lot of people didn't like them, and I agree. At first, I was like, "What? This does not feel Star Wars to me." But I kind of like the idea that they're just like this group of youth ruffian on this backwater planet
Mhm.
that have their own little like kind of sort of like mod culture that um, Favreau kind of pulled from. So initially, I was like, this feels weird, but I kind of like them. I also feel like they're another character. They're another group of characters in the story. We didn't really get a whole lot of them or a lot of backstory from them. And I know the motivation is there's no work for them, and Boba Fett gives them work. So I get that. But I also just feel like
Yeah.
they were just kind of another like ancillary group of characters in the background, and we didn't really get to know all that much about them. And I would have liked to know more about those characters.
Mhm.
So I'm okay with them. I know a lot of people are not a fan of their speeders and their overall
Their
look.
Vespas.
Yeah.
Super quick. Grand Moff Duran Vale slash Dennis. He is saying that like he didn't like see like a lot of things in the show that he really personally enjoyed. And he says, "Sorry if I sound negative, by the way. Don't mean to. However you feel about anything in Star Wars is my like how I look at it, like in my own head. Star Wars, since Star Wars is so big and so many different types of stories can happen in it, you can kind of pick and choose what you
Yeah.
view as canon or what you do or don't like. So you don't have to apologize about being too negative. I mean, as long as you're not being like a sociopath and like going on Twitter and being like, "Oh, I hate this actor and I'm gonna harass him or whatever." I think that you can kind of tell like Dan's and I opinion is we've mostly been negative. I feel we're like, "Oh, all the Luke stuff was great." But all the stuff with Boba has been kind of kind of lame.
Yeah.
So
To go
we're more or
back
less there with you.
to go back to chapter 3, the other thing too that happened in chapter 3 that I kind of liked, but I wanted to see more of was Boba getting the Rancor. And
I forgot all about that.
yeah, and like this is like one of my just biggest gripes with the story is we got so little of Boba Fett's actual story in 9 ABY. And I would
Yeah.
have loved to see moments of him training with the Rancor. Like I can't remember I don't even know if we get his character's name, but the actor that plays Machete, crap, what's his name? Whatever that actor's name is, that's awesome. He gives
It's left
him
my
he
brain
gives
too.
he tells Boba like, "Hey, you could potentially ride this, but it's a lot of time and effort to be able to get to the point where you could ride a Rancor." And I would have loved to have seen that, even if it's a small montage. To then now at the end where he's riding the Rancor, we're like, hell yeah, this totally makes sense. Where he just shows up riding the Rancor at the end, which don't get me wrong, was so goddamn awesome. But I wish we would have gotten to see him more with the Rancor and training with the Rancor.
Like seeing Boba Fett riding a Rancor is like something that you would experience in a Star Wars like fever dream. Like seeing him, the the Rancor picks that guy up and he picks him up for Boba Fett to shoot him. Like he understands. He's like, all right, you got this guy. You blow his brains out. I'll go back to killing people. Like that is cool. Like that's like such a cool premise. Like to write that out, and then Boba Fett gets to ride a Rancor. Like that's sick.
Yeah,
Like how could you like not be hyped on that? It's
I was
just
so, and it's funny
getting
when
to that is like the problem. I feel.
yeah, and like when you heard the Rancor roar, I had completely forgot about the Rancor, and I remember watching stuff where people were like, of course, next week in the finale he's gonna ride the Rancor, and I knew it was gonna come, but at that point in the episode, it was not in my brain that Rancor was gonna enter in to the episode, and when it happened, I was just like, are you freaking kidding me? This is incredible. But the one thing I didn't get is, all right, so the Rancor winds up basically saving them, and then it winds up getting loose, and like Boba's crew, the people from Freetown, they're all like shooting the Rancor. Like, what
Yeah,
the hell?
like,
The
what
Rancor
the
just
hell?
saved your life. Why are you shooting the Rancor, even if it's loose?
I was like, you were there for like the whole plot. Like you saw that this was happening. That's the exact same thing that me and my buddy were thinking. We were like, wait, what? Why did? Also, having Cad Bane just like blow his flamethrower at the Rancor, and the Rancor was like, all right,
Right?
I'm done then. I'm like, what? That is such lazy writing. I was like, how you're writing out like the Deus Ex Machina like out of the show.
I 100% agree. And I said the same thing to my wife. And then I was like, all right, so we're supposed to believe that Cad Bane's flamethrower is going to make the Rancor go away. And I get it. I understand a showdown between Cad Bane and Boba Fett. Dope. I totally understand it. But the way that we got to that point did not feel
Earned.
earned. Yeah. Because we go from that moment of Cad Bane shooting the flamethrower in its face and the Rancor just dipping out to now Din's trying to help corral the Rancor, and he's using his flamethrower in the Rancor's mouth, and it's as if the Rancor does not care
Yeah,
whatsoever.
it's like negating something that just happened like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like what I meant by none of the Boba Fett stuff really. Like I mean, like I get that. I mean, Boba Fett's riding a Rancor. That's cool. Like him and Din Djarin are teaming up. Also awesome. But it's like the things building up to it. I don't feel like it mattered. Like it didn't. Like they didn't earn the right for me to be hyped on it. And for me, the only interesting thing outside of like the Din Djarin stuff, outside of outside of like Grogu and Luke and stuff like that, was Cad Bane, and then he's barely in it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Ugh.
Which I do you think Cad Bane's still alive?
God, I hope so. I'm like, come on, man. Like there's
I
like
think he
clearly like
is.
there's unseen history. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there like a canceled episode of
Yeah.
that like they showed like young Boba and Cad interacting.
Yeah. So it's like it went to the animatic stage where there was supposed to be an arc in the Clone Wars where I can't remember the exact plot of the arc, but basically Boba and Cad Bane get hired to do some kind of a job, and at the end of it, Boba and Cad Bane wind up having a duel. Cad Bane shoots Boba. He gets the dent in his helmet that we all know,
Oh
and
yeah.
Boba shot Cad Bane. So I think if I remember correctly, they both shoot each other at the exact same time. So that's why, like in the Bad Batch, when Cad Bane appears, he's got basically like the chrome dome in his head because it's supposed to be that he and Boba Fett had their duel,
Mm.
or at least that's what we're supposed to think. And then that's what you see, that he still has that like metal plate on his head in the finale of the Book of Boba Fett, because his hat like falls off his head when
Oh
Boba
yeah.
Fett knocks him down.
Yeah.
But I pointed this out to my wife, like on Cad Bane's chest, he has something that's like beeping, and you could kind of hear like a heartbeat. So I don't know if that's supposed to be like some sort of heart monitor or something for him. So there's a part of me that's like, maybe he's not dead, and maybe and also I feel like at this point with Star Wars, like if you could bring back Darth Maul, you could bring back any character. So I'm still gonna hold out hope that we get to see Cad Bane again.
Yeah, they really, man, they brought back Darth Maul hard.
Yeah,
He
so
was the most brought back to life, I feel.
yeah, so if he can come back, pretty much anyone can.
I mean, I think that it was sort of implied at the end that he's still alive. Because I mean, rewatching, because I rewatched the episode today just to like make sure that I remembered like what had happened or whatever. But like you can hear like a pulsing like type
Yeah,
beat. It's not necessarily like an EKG monitor or something like that, but it's clearly supposed to kind of indicate that he's either alive or dying. I thought that he was going to be at the end, like where, because you know Cobb Vanth is
that's what
in
I
the
thought
bot.
too.
I thought that was going to be Cad Bane. Like he was like, yeah,
I thought the same exact thing because I had no clue that there was like that post credit scene. So
God, I
my
forgot
wife
about
and
that.
I watched it again, and we stopped it right at the as the episode ends, not before the post credit scene. And I asked my wife, "Oh, who do you think is in the Bacta tank?" And we were both like, I think it's going to be Cad Bane." And then the credits kept rolling, and then we saw the post credit scene. Like, oh shit, I didn't realize it was Cobb Vanth. Which to me, Cobb Vanth is cool, but I'd rather
Cad
Cad
Bane still
Bane
be
be
alive.
alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to answer a couple people's thing about or questions about Cad Bane and Django, so Django Fett trained Cad Bane to be a bounty hunter, and then when Boba Fett basically came of age or came to a certain age, and Django wasn't around anymore after he was killed in Attack of the Clones, Cad Bane basically mentored Boba Fett and trained him, gave him some more training on being a bounty hunter.
So how old is Cad Bane?
I don't know
Boba
if
Fett.
I don't know his exact age, but I loved the one thing I did like was when Boba Fett called him an old man. I appreciated that because yeah, at that point in the Book of Boba Fett, he's old.
Well, it's also like I mean, they're both old, but Cad Bane's like a full adult during the Clone Wars. So, and since he's an alien, I was kind of like, I don't know like how like an old Cad Bane would look. So I was like, he
Yeah,
has to be at least like in his 70s or something.
so Wikipedia has him being born in 62 BBY, so that would put him, yeah, so 62, so he would be 71. Holy crap, by the
He's
time of,
old.
yeah, Book of Boba Fett.
I,
So
I
Wikipedia
know that
has him as
people were
being
like,
dead.
uh, oh, so like they were like, yeah, he's officially dead.
See, Wikipedia is just people writing it in.
Yeah, it can
So
be inaccurate for sure.
yeah, so I part of me is I'm holding out hope that he's still alive because he's such a dope character.
I mean, I kind of assumed that when he showed up, and so Ghost. Let me read this. Sorry, Grand Moff. He's saying that he thought it was obvious that Cobb survived, so I don't know why the post-credit scene was there. I agree because I think that it's like pretty obvious that Cad clearly shot him like closer to the shoulder, um, and I thought that it was kind of plot armor that Cobb Vanth got shot in the shoulder, but he just like obliterated his deputy. Like he just like he really
Right?
killed that guy a lot. But I assumed that when Cad Bane showed up, I was like, okay, he's gonna be the villain for the rest of the episodes, and he kind of was. But it's like, shut up, Siri, stop talking to me. Sorry, my computer's talking to me. Okay, go away now, Siri. Fuck off. That's fine. Now go away, please. But I assumed that he was gonna live, and that if there was going to be a Book of Boba Fett season 2, okay, Cad Bane's the bad guy now, or because as like a fellow canon comic book reader, did you think that like Kira was gonna show up at some point in the show?
I did not. And the reason why is I had in some of my videos people commenting that they thought Crimson Dawn was going to get involved, and I did not think Crimson Dawn was going to show up because of what's happening in Crimson Reign. Like the first issue of Crimson Reign is being told from the perspective of this character called the Archivist, and she recorded herself with some kind of like I don't
Almost
know
like
if it's
holocron like
yeah,
technology.
it's some sort of holocron, and she's basically saying like this is the tragedy, this is before the fall. So implying that Crimson Dawn is going to fall, And to me, it was like we're getting a whole comic series devoted to Crimson Dawn. I don't think that we're gonna see them appear in the Book of
Yeah.
Boba Fett. So that
Yeah.
was my thought, is that that's why we wouldn't see Crimson Dawn. So yeah, I didn't think Crimson Dawn was gonna be in the series at any point.
I guess that like the reason why I thought that they would be is purely from like an out of universe perspective. It's like, how are you gonna cast Daenerys Targaryen and then not have her be in something else? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I know there's no lore reason why she would be involved, but because the Pike Syndicate, I was like, okay, well, these dudes are just kind of lame. There's no way they're going to be the main villain for the show, so Crimson Dawn has to show up at some point. That was my assumption, and I know a lot of other people thought that same thing, purely just because Emilia Clarke, I'm like, she's a big get. Like, she was a huge deal during Game of Thrones, so of course they're going to use her again, you know? So, going back to what we were saying earlier, is it's just you were saying that like you didn't feel like the story was like fleshed out, like it was kind of directionless.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is like whose fault that would be, I guess.
To me, I think that goes back to the writing, and I would have to go back to each episode, like the credits, and see. I'm pretty sure it was developed. It was written by by Jon Favreau, but then I can't recall, but I think Favreau also wrote the book of or the Mandalorian. So I don't know. The entire season of the Book of Boba Fett, it just feels like they tried to cram in so much.
And it's only
It
7 episodes, so it's like, how much
it
can you
was
cram
es-
in?
yeah, it was essentially Mandalorian season 2.5, really
Yeah.
is what it was. And that's the problem. I had this conversation with a friend of mine and my wife. What do you have? So if we're going into this, if you're the creators of this season, and your thought is, because I saw this on Reddit where someone posted some articles and that had quotes from like Favreau and some of the other people involved with the series, kind of saying that this is going to be Mando season 2.5, but it was never really marketed that
Yeah,
way.
no, it's like definitely
Um,
marketed as like a mob boss type
yeah, and
series.
so I think I think the biggest issue that I have with this series is it should not have been named the Book of Boba Fett. But then I don't know what the hell you would name this show, because you can't call it the Mandalorian, because then the reveal of Din popping up in Chapter 5 doesn't.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
It
as
would still be
impactful.
awesome. Yeah, it wouldn't be as impactful. Do you call it the Book of Tatooine? Like, I don't know, but I think a big problem is the name of the show. They should have never named it the Book of Boba Fett.
And I feel like you can't. I don't think that the tone of that post credit scene in The Mandalorian jives with the tone of Boba Fett in the show. Like at the end of The Mandalorian, when they show the post credit scene where he like struts into Boba's palace and he shoots Bib Fortuna, it's like, oh shit, like he's Boba Fett's still like a cold blooded killer. And
Yeah,
then Book of Boba Fett starts, and he's like, I'm compromising with everybody. I'm
that's
like giving up ground left and right. I'm like,
dude, that's a
he's not
great
even the
point
same
that I had not even
character.
thought of. Yeah, I did not think about that. That is an excellent point. Also, dude, there was the one comment that Boba Fett made about Bib Fortuna betraying him or something. I'm like, what
Yeah, what?
did I miss something? Where did Bib Fortuna betray Boba Fett?
Do I need to go back and rewatch episode 6?
Yeah, I don't remember. It was in one of the earlier episodes. I think it might have been actually in the episode where he saves Fennec, and they wind up basically teaming up.
Hmm. Grand Moff just had a really funny comment. Does anyone have a clue why they called it the book? Like the Book of Boba Fett?
I think my guess would be is, if we're looking at this in terms of it being Mandalorian 2.5, this is like, and you're in how they're all, each episode's called chapter.
Oh,
This would
yeah,
be
yeah.
like an interlude to the book of the Mandalorian. That's how that would be my thought, but I have no clue.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about that either. Like the whole chapter thing. But I wanted to like circle back to another point that you had made, just because I've been dying to talk to somebody else about this. Um, I had been making comments about uh, season 2 of The Mandalorian, and I believe this is something that you and I talked about in our last live stream. Was I thought that all of the weakest episode was by far the Robert Rodriguez episode that he directed.
100%. Oh, 100%.
It,
And
I
like
mean,
it's
it
kind of
looks like a CW show. Like, does it not? Like, does it not look like Batgirl or something?
I am. I saw stuff online after that episode aired where it's like, this looks like a group of like film students in college shot a Star Wars show on like basically some land in the middle of California, and it's kind of true. Like, and I remember one of my big things was some of the armor of the stormtroopers didn't look right. I don't know. And again, like if we're going back to like how Boba Fett appears in that episode. He totally appears like an absolute badass,
Mhm.
stone cold killer.
With the gaffy
How
stick.
did Yeah, like how does that again jive with what we're seeing in the Book of Boba Fett?
And they're both made. They were both like filmed by the same guy. And I think
Yeah,
that Robert Rodriguez's whole shtick is that his movies and shows or whatever, they look like they're purposely meant to look cheap. That's like always been kind of his thing. Is I mean, with the exception of like Sin City or whatever, but like they're all meant to like they're stylistically kind of made that way to like kind of look like kind of like shit tier movies or whatever. It just doesn't like mesh with Star Wars's overall aesthetic. Like,
no. I mean, especially even going back to the original trilogy, like George Lucas was about pushing boundaries in filmmaking. Yeah, I don't think
in like the
Robert.
lived in universe thing, like where it
Yeah,
looks like Mos Espa is just weirdly clean for being like a desert town. And going back to a question that Grand Moff asked about like the finale, again, as another like fellow canon comic book lover, what did you think of the usage of Black Chrysanthemum in the series?
I liked Black Chrysanthemum a lot. Like when he rolled up in was I think the second episode for the first time, I was
Hmm.
like, oh
He
hell
looked
yes!
so sick.
I was so pumped when I saw Black Chrysanthemum, and I think he was done pretty well because he is kind of like what we see in the comics. He's ruthless. He's kicking people's ass left and right. Although the one, and this isn't really his fault. This is more of a writing standpoint. Like, how's my man taking like 10 blaster bolts to
Yeah.
all
What
over
the
his
hell?
body in the finale? And we're seeing how it's affecting him. He's like limping, and the mods have to carry him to safety. And then later in the episode, it's as if nothing is wrong with him whatsoever.
There's like no
But
continuity person on set, I guess.
be that as it may, I loved Black Chrysanthemum. Like I loved how like Garza Fwip dropped the thing about him being a gladiator. Black Chrysanthemum, pretty much my gripes with the show are, for the most part, characters that are not Boba Fett I don't really have gripes with the show, but Boba Fett is story and 9ABY is pretty much where my gripes lie.
Yeah, it's like the titular character of the series. Doesn't feel like he's really all that important. But Black Chrysanthemum, huge fan. Like I love the Doctor Aphra series, and
Yeah,
I like
same.
all of her interactions with him. Like they're just so funny because she's always like actively trying to convince him not to kill her. So also I'm sure that a lot of people in the chat and stuff like that are aware that Black Chrysanthemum has a run-in with Obi-Wan Kenobi, hence why he has the scar and stuff like
I
that.
love that they included the
I
scar, dude. I
know. I was
was
like,
so happy
yes.
about that.
Yes, it was so sick. It like seeing like when he first showed up, I was like, okay, here's where it's picking up. I was like, we're gonna see some Star Wars shit. Some
Yeah,
like they were bringing in a lot of elements of like Disney canon EU, which that's like I want that because like I want some form of like continuing story where we're being rewarded for paying attention.
yeah, dude, that's the stuff that I do love. That was incredible about the Book of Boba Fett is seeing Black Chrysanthemum appear, and like, yeah, if you read Doctor Aphra, because I'm pretty sure Well, he might have first appeared in Darth Vader, but yeah, he's a comic book
Yeah.
only character before appearing in the Book of Boba Fett, and like you said, it felt like such a rewarding moment getting to see this comic book only character appear in the Book of Boba Fett. And the same thing even with Cad Bane. Like, yeah, Cad Bane was in
Clone
a
Wars.
multiple episodes of the Clone Wars and was in the Bad Batch, but then to get to see a cartoon only character make that jump to live action was so awesome. And so
It's
yeah,
like
rewarding
you're
is the perfect term.
like, everybody kind of complained that like the sequel trilogy just obviously like, he completely negates the year or whatever. So like this stuff, I mean, I want to feel like the things that I'm reading are important. Otherwise, like, why would I read them? Like, why would I be that? I mean, obviously, if they're a good story, they're a good story or whatever. But like seeing Black Chrysanthemum, seeing Cad Bane, like those were the things that got me so excited. But I feel like they're barely in it.
I know.
And Ghost said, "I love Black Chrysanthemum." He said, "I love black content." But
Oh,
I'm
dude,
assuming there's
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was gonna say, yeah, Ghost. I love that because it's I think it's in is that in the Star Wars main Star Wars run, the 2016 run or whatever. But yeah, I love Chewie and Black Chrysanthemum's fight too.
Yeah, I like that he says, I liked him in the show except for hugging Boba Fett. Like, because I agree with you where when Black Chrysanthemum like picks him up and bear hugs him, that should have just obliterated his spine because why would he be holding back? You know what I mean? So it's like things like that that I'm like,
And
I understand
absolutely.
the conditions, you know.
And just even like, and I think Fennec Shand is an awesome character, but like the scene in the finale where she rolls up to where the Pikes are like hunker down in,
Mhm.
she's just like blasting them from where, right? They're in this enclosed room. Like how is she getting to them? And like, how is she stringing up the mayor?
Yeah, it's like what's the spatial awareness, you know?
And I guess that, like, my wife is like, yeah, well, that, we could just be nitpicking here, but at the same time, like, I don't know, I did, those were things that I didn't question in The Mandalorian. I went up at, I also said this to my wife, like, halfway through the finale, I wound up asking myself, is this episode good? And
Yeah.
I said to myself, like, if you have to ask yourself if what you're watching or like whatever media you're consuming is good, then it's probably not.
Yeah, that's like you were saying, like that's like not something that I was thinking about in The Mandalorian because I was entertained by it. Like I didn't have to like stop and think, am I being entertained by this? Because I just was. So I definitely feel that same way where I am nitpicking the flaws because I'm like, okay, it's big stretches between things that I'm interested in. So I'm thinking about those mechanical things like where is she shooting these people from? Like
Yeah.
why? Like Grand Moff just said, why would Black Chrysanthemum just throw his weapon at Boba Fett like right when their fight started? Like why wouldn't his bear hug just? I understand he's like wearing because he's not wearing Beskar in that fight scene, right? He's just
No.
like,
He's just in like a bathing suit or
yeah,
whatever.
that should have like completely killed that dude.
Yeah. Or even like I said this to my wife too, and I get it. I understand from a storytelling perspective why the decision was made, but like, why are the Trandoshans and I'm trying to remember, was it what the group that are attacking the Gamorreans? Why are the Trandoshans that are attacking Black Chrysanthemum and the group that's attacking I think it was the Klatooinians now that I think about it, the
Mhm.
group that's attacking the Gamorreans, why are they using melee weapons when they know like we're about to have this big gang fight? We're gonna ambush these characters. Why are they using melee weapons? And I get the whole point,
The
right? Because the
aesthetic of it.
Gamorreans, yeah, the Gamorreans, they only carry melee weapons. Black Chrysanthemum, you could make the argument like, all right, first Black Chrysanthemum to be able to have a fighting chance by himself against like 10 other people, he probably has to be taking on people carrying melee weapons. But then the easy solution is give Black Chrysanthemum a person or two to give him backup so that he's fighting against people that have blasters. I don't know. It's little things like that that just like it didn't make sense. I understand the story, like why it was chosen storytelling wise, but
Mhm.
I felt like it didn't make sense to me when I was watching it.
I mean, those are the things like during the finale that like I found myself really picking apart was like Boba saying like, "Oh, we have enough people to survive like this pike attack or whatever," and it's like do you though? It's
right?
it's like a town of people who are like dirt farmers. Like they're not seasoned like veteran warriors or whatever. I understand you can make the argument, well, they're from Tatooine, they live out in the desert, they're probably familiar with like using some form of weaponry to like stay alive. But the Pike Syndicate they're a gang. Like they're a
Hardened
gang
criminal.
of they're hardened criminals. It's like Boba Fett, and he even like I think he even mentioned somewhere like in that scene, he's like, "Oh, I got enough credits." Like, well, if you got enough credits, like why aren't you like paying somebody
Yeah,
else to come and help? I
what?
don't know, man.
And even like my wife and I my wife and I were talking about at one point in the finale. I think it's like something a comment's made about like basically the Pikes their full force hasn't arrived to Tatooine, and I didn't in like one of the earlier episodes we saw like waves of the Pikes arriving onto Tatooine, and then the next episode or maybe two episodes after we get like Fennec explaining to the crew where all the Pikes are and how there's a ton of them in on Tatooine now. Like I don't know, it's things like that where it's just like I don't things just don't some stuff
They're not
just did
adding
not
up.
seem to add up. Yeah.
Yeah. I if I were to like give like the show like a rating like out of 10, probably like a 4 maybe. Like it's because I think the even like the Mandalorian episodes, like the episodes where he's just in it, he's like the main character like in those episodes. They're directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, and they look incredible. Like they look like Mandalorian episodes. I couldn't say that the book of, like the Boba Fett episodes of the show even look good. Like it's not even like it's like that visually pleasing to look at. So
I agree. You
I don't
that's a
know,
great
man.
point because I remember there's this scene, like the chase scene where they're chasing the one character
They're
that
all going like 5 miles an hour.
yeah, which the Mayor Mock Shays is like Major Domo. That character. I don't know if you've ever seen Veep, but that actor, he's in Veep, and he's awesome in that show. And I thought he did such a phenomenal job as the character in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
he was
that
definitely
like chase
interesting for
scene,
sure.
felt weird. And I just kind of chalked it up to like, hey, maybe they're saving some of their budget for some more cool stuff. Which, if you had to say, like, I'd rather them spend more money on like the scene of the Night of a Thousand Tears versus some like chase scene in chapter 3 or 4 or whatever it is. But yeah, there are definitely that's a great point that there are definitely moments where like things didn't look the best, and I don't know if yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I agree. If I had to give it a rating, and again, this is going back to me, any Star Wars is better than no Star Wars, but I
Sure.
probably would give it like a 5 and out of 10. And I think Chapter 5 is incredible. It's so good. Chapter 6 is like
Peak Star Wars.
probably yeah, like 25 minutes of some of the best Star Wars of my entire life. Absolutely incredible. And then even after that, it's incredible because then Cad Bane rolls into town. But just the moment, like Boba Fett's main story in 9 ABY, I just didn't feel like there was enough time to really understand his motivations and why he was doing the things that he was saying he wanted to do.
Yeah, and there just wasn't enough like Boba Fett being a mob boss stuff to keep me. I know like we keep going back to like his story wasn't that interesting or whatever. Like we probably sound like broken records, but I think that what I was thinking going into the show is that Din Djarin, he is like sort of a lighthearted Jedi. Like he's empathetic. He's like I mean like he adopts a kid. Like he didn't want to kill this kid and he adopts him. So I thought that to distinguish between Din and Boba Fett, they were going to make Boba Fett like a he will do anything for money. Like he'll kill people. He doesn't care if he blows up like a room full of kids. Obviously, I don't want to see that, but like I thought we were gonna see Boba Fett is like the polar opposite of Din, like where he's still willing to do anything for credits. He'll screw over anyone he wants to. He was gonna be like kind of like a ruthless, like Jabba the Hutt type guy. So they just kind of made them both the same character outside of the fact that Din's not a clone.
Yeah,
I think
that's a great
that's like
point.
one of my big my really big gripes for the show is there's not
That's a
enough to like make me care.
Yeah, and like you bring up a great point because how many times do we hear him say like he wants to run a family or he wants to run a Gatra, and he keeps
Mhm.
referring to himself as like the daimyo of Tatooine. But then at the end of the episode, he's basically like, I guess he's just like the mayor. He's not really running a crime family. Like,
Yeah, I was really confused by that too. I don't know, because it's what is your end goal? If like you're not running spice, you're not killing people, like you're negotiating with everybody. Like, aren't you just a politician at that point who like wasn't elected? Like,
yeah,
what are you? I guess.
yeah. I guess he's just like the new mayor of Mos Espa now, and like not really a crime boss. I don't know.
And he had what's her face like strangle that guy to death with like a piano wire,
Yeah,
like the original mayor. So it's
yeah, Mayor
there is
Mosh.
like still some like ruthless stuff in there, but it's not. I don't know. I'm just confused by his motivations. But Graham Moff just asked us question for both of you. Sorry if you've covered this already, but what do you think of Boba Fett? The way Boba Fett speaks in the show. To me, a lot of time it sounds like he's trying too hard to sound cool. I was okay with it. Like that part like didn't really bug me. The mannerisms of Boba Fett that bothered me more. You're taking your helmet off too much, bro. Like you're walking into a room where everyone wants to kill you, and you're taking off an impenetrable helmet. I didn't understand like I understand that Tom Weir Morrison like they're high like on the prequel stuff and he's a clone of Jango Fett, so it's like a tie back to that. But it's like, dude, put your helmet on.
That's a good point. I never thought about that, but yeah, dude, he takes his helmet off a lot.
He's got it sidled next to him the whole time.
You know, I one of the things originally was kind of like his mannerisms when he fights sometimes I thought was weird, but then I thought about the fact that of his heritage and his culture, and maybe that's why he does, you know, he has some of those um kind of exaggerated facial expressions. And
Mhm.
after that I was like, all right, maybe that I don't mind that as much anymore. His I think for the most part, his acting I think is actually kind of good. I didn't find his speaking to be something where I thought it was an
Distracted by it. Yeah.
issue. But yeah.
I mean, Tom Moore Morrison's the man. Like I really loved him as Jango Fett, and I really enjoyed him as I shouldn't say I really enjoy him as Boba Fett because
Well,
I don't know his
I think
characterization's so
he's
different. But
perfectly casted as Boba Fett. I think is what I would agree with that. That like he's like is the epitome of what I think Boba Fett should be, and that's probably because we grew up with the prequels
yeah,
and like Jango
yeah,
Fett and everything. So yeah,
that was like our Star Wars. Like it was our you know Empire Strikes Back or whatever. Although Attack of the Clones is my least favorite of the prequels for sure. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well, so I don't know, man. I think it was last year I did a rewatch of the prequels. I don't know. It's I'm so torn between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. For the longest time, my thought was Attack of the Clones was my least favorite, and then I watched. I was like, there's some holes in this movie, but it's kind of dope.
I mean, like I can get enjoyment out of basically any Star Wars movie for sure. So like when I watch Attack of the Clones, I'm not like, oh my god, I'd rather just like rip my eyeballs out or something like that. But it's definitely for me, it's the weaker of that trilogy. I actually am like kind of an apologist for Episode One. I think that Episode One's I don't know how you could watch that movie and not have fun. I guess like my outlook on it.
Yeah, I mean, especially because the Duel of the Fates, man, like that just
Oh yeah,
that
it's like top notch. You could
finale
never
of
top that.
yeah is incredible. I don't know. And I think too, like this is one of the reasons why not to go back to the sequels, but this is my least favorite of all the Star Wars movies is The Force Awakens. I think
Mm.
from like a storytelling standpoint, The Force Awakens is probably more of like a solid film than like Attack of the Clones or The Phantom Menace, but you had mentioned you alluded to this before. The Force Awakens is a straight rip
Yeah.
of A New Hope, and that's one of the things I will forever love about the prequels is George Lucas had a vision in mind and what he wanted to do, and he did it. And I know at the time some people were not happy, but I love that he took chances with stuff because now I was actually working on a video earlier and I was watching scenes in Revenge of the Sith. I'm like, dude, this movie is so good. Revenge of the Sith is
It's
so awesome.
coherent. Like those three movies, like you were saying, say what you want about them, but like they're a story that they all feel like a continuation of one another.
Yeah,
Episode
yeah.
7 to 8 feel like completely different, like completely different timeline. Then episode 8 to 9. So again, not to get too far off track in the sequel trilogy, um, me and my buddy just rewatched episode 9. Like we did like kind of like a whole watch. Like we watched 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. This was like over the span of like a few months or whatever. Like we didn't watch them all in one sitting. But we rewatched episode 9 very recently, and I kept saying, I was trying to convince him to watch it. Like he didn't want to watch it. He'd seen it before, obviously, but he was like, "Oh, maybe we should watch Lord of the Rings or something instead of episode 9." And finally convinced him to watch it. We sat down, got through the whole movie, and I was like, "Man, I really like that a lot less than I remember me liking it." Because like the last time I had seen it was in theaters, so like rewatching it again, I was like, "Yeah, there's like nothing redeeming in that movie that I really liked."
Dude,
The
I
only thing that I liked was Ben Solo's like shrug when he teleports the lightsaber.
I rewatched episode 9 a few weeks after Thanksgiving, and my wife wasn't watching it with me. I
Mm.
finished watching it and I went up to her. I was like, "That movie kind of sucks, man. It really is not very good. It has it. I'll die on this hill. When it strikes out in the worst ways.
Yep.
When it hits, though, it hits hard for me. Like there's the 20 minutes in like the middle of the movie where Kylo Ren basically turns from Kylo Ren to Ben Solo, and then Leia dies. That is awesome, but then there's just
Yeah.
so much of that movie that is not good.
It's like hard to not feel emotion at I mean, Carrie Fisher is like the first woman that I ever had a crush on. Outside of Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey was my first love. For some reason, I
Re-
think I was just like, I saw her on TV as I was as I was like turning like 7 or 8, and I was like, oh, that's a woman. But Carrie Fisher is like my first like crush, obviously. So like everybody, it would be, you would be inhuman to like not feel something emotional about the passing of Carrie Fisher and the passing of Leia in the movies. But I think that my whole thing with the sequels, it's like I was seeing Luke and Leia training together again, that flashback scene.
it's dope.
I'm like, you could have given me this. You could have like you were saying earlier, no legacy characters. Like you just make a sequel trilogy that's completely, it's super far in the future. All of the legacy characters are dead, and then just give us flashbacks of like elderly versions of those characters, or like
I
where
would
you
have
see
liked
like
that way
Luke and Leia
more.
training. That would have given you like a lot more free room to like move around in the universe or whatever, because obviously Star Wars is like one continuous timeline, so it's like not easy to like, I don't know, man. We're like getting off on a big
I
tangent now.
know. So to go back to the Book of Boba Fett, if there's a season 2, would you want one?
I mean, I guess like I would rather. I mean, I'm not like a Disney executive. I have no idea what's happening at Lucasfilm, and this is like a side note from me to the audience. If you see somebody on YouTube who's pretending to understand what's happening at Lucasfilm, they're lying to you. That's that's just my opinion. I'm not trying to stir up like any form of drama, but like you see people saying, "Oh, Kathleen Kennedy's going to be fired any day now," and then she signs another contract for like 5 years or whatever.
Oh my
Um,
God, dude. Kathleen Kennedy, according to some YouTubers, has been on her way out for like 5 years now.
she's been
Jesus
head in the
Christ.
guillotine for like so long at this point. So
What I don't, not to go off on a tangent here, what I don't get about that, like, dude, Kathleen Kennedy has her hand in all things Star Wars. So, like,
everything you
she's a
like, everything you
part of,
dislike.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's just the Mandalorian that people love. Like, she's got her hand in it, but you don't hear people complaining about that. That's a completely different, like, conversation for another day. But
Yeah. That's like that's weirdly something that I never want to like be in a position where I'm like defending like a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's actively like influencing, like, because their parks like in Florida and California, they have like their own cops. Like they're like petitioning governments to like
Dude,
do
it
things
is
in those
wild.
places. So like
I I
I'm not going to defend Disney by any
and
means.
I don't know if this is still around, but there was like outside of Disney, like a town that was created by Disney, and I'm totally drawn. I learned this in college, and it was so goddamn creepy and weird. It was something like straight out of a dystopia.
We have like friends that they're from Florida, and so like they tell us like all these crazy things about uh the shit that like Disney has pulled, like just to like keep their parks open during COVID, or like things that they've done to like pay off like politicians or whatever. So I'm not like defending Disney, but at least be like intellectually honest if you're going to say things about Lucasfilm like under Disney or Kathleen Kennedy or whatever. That's like my whole position. So I feel like a lot of like Legends fans, I am a Legends person. Like that's my Star Wars is Legends to me. Like that, all those comic books behind me. Like I have like the entire run of Dark Times, the entire run of Dawn of the Jedi. Like I've read a lot of Legends stuff, like more than a lot of people who probably shit on a lot of Disney stuff have. Because I feel like a lot of Star Wars fans who like really dunk on Disney a lot, like they're it's like, oh, I've read Wikipedia articles about Legend stuff, or I've like watched YouTube videos about Legend stuff. Get back to me once you've read the 19 books in the New Jedi Order series, I guess, is my whole thing. So I definitely don't want to like to defend them because I feel like they've made like a lot of like weird or bad decisions when it comes to Star Wars. But like, I mean, let's not pretend like Kathleen Kennedy hasn't made like boatloads of money for
Oh
Disney
my
when it
god,
comes to
yeah.
Star Wars. Like that's why they hired her. They hired her because she is like a producing powerhouse. That's her whole shtick. And before I get too far away from it, Ghost, I want to thank Ghost sent me 40 million credits in
Oh my
SWOTOR.
god.
So I'm gonna transfer that to my personal inventory there, and thank you very much for your contribution to the cause. But yeah, that's I've like gotten into like little tips in Discord or whatever, telling people like, I mean, you can't say that like the sequel trilogy, like from a writing perspective, it's a mess. Like even people who like the sequel trilogies, I think that they can admit that 8 to 9, nine's like a course correction, at least in their opinion, was a course correction.
Oh yeah,
But
definitely.
like
I
let's like not pretend that they didn't make money or that they're failures.
So if you had to make a decision on like where you would want Boba Fett's story to go from here, from like 9 ABY onward,
Hmm.
what what sort of stuff would you want to see, whether it's in a Book of Boba Fett season 2, or I'm assuming we're going to see him appear in The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
like the whole reason why I got off on that tangent is I think I would kind of rather they spend like their resources and their brain power on something else, just like in general, like maybe even getting away from like Mandalorian stuff a little bit. But if Boba Fett's gonna show back up in something, I would probably rather it be season 3 of The Mandalorian, and then he maybe not get his own series again, because I think that you and I like both like feel that they're building up to like a big crossover event between like the Ahsoka show that's going to be, I think is being filmed now, between the Ahsoka show, Boba Fett show, the Mandalorian, like allusions to Thrawn and stuff like that.
yeah,
I
I
think
was going to say that.
they're building to that thing, so I don't think that we really need another Boba Fett season. I think that he can just be in those other things and be involved in that big crossover event, like Avengers style or whatever. I don't know. That's how I view it. What about you?
I agree. I don't think I will 100% watch it if there were a season 2 of the Book of Boba Fett, and
But yeah,
I'm sure there'd be things I would like about it. But I think at this point, I would probably say let's focus more on Din. Let's focus more on some of these other characters or other shows that we know are going to happen. And there's still room for Boba Fett to reappear, because like you said, at this we know that there's something is going to happen. There's going to be some bigger like overarching villain in these series that are going to feature Din and these other characters that have already appeared in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett.
Mhm.
So I think we will 100% have room for Boba Fett to reappear and to help fight whoever this big villain is going to be, or whatever the big villain of whatever show we're watching. So I would prefer them to not have a season 2 and just have Boba Fett reappear in
Yeah.
some of these other series. But if it were to happen, I would 100% watch it, and I would probably still be excited for it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like you're like any Star Wars. Like even bad pizza is still pretty good pizza.
Yeah,
So
that's my outlook on Star Wars. Is same as coffee. Any coffee or any Star Wars is better than no Star Wars.
yeah, and I think that it's clear that like they're building up to the Thrawn stuff because like at the end of Bad Batch, they're like they show Mount Tantus, which
Yeah.
is like a big Thrawn callback. Like they're clearly like trying to allude to the fact that Thrawn's going to be showing back up, and I'm assuming that Snoke's going to be involved in some way, shape, or form because like they're showing the cloning stuff. Yeah, so I feel the same way. Like I just think that we got it. It was basically Mandalorian 2.5. We saw it. It was certainly something. It out of all of the Star Wars content that's ever been made, it was certainly some of it. So I don't know, but
So
yeah.
this was like a lot of ragging on the Book of Boba Fett. What would you say are like your three things about the season that you enjoyed the most?
Tom Weir Morrison. I'll say my top three things that aren't the Mandalorian or Luke. So because I want it to be about Boba Fett in some way, shape, or form. Love Tom Weir Morrison. I think that he's good no matter what. I loved the culture of the Tusken Raiders. I loved seeing them like getting some form of like character arc, like they're showing like their culture and like seeing him like make his own gaffy stick and stuff like that. It's like a rite of passage or whatever. And Black Chrysanthemum. Those like my big three. What about you?
So Tuskens of like the Boba Fett story, Tuskens 100% were like my favorite thing about Boba's story. And then Black K and even though Cad Bane would have been dope to see him in more, like him being in the series was so goddamn awesome. So those would be my favorite three.
I mean, just like the scene of him walking up, and
Yeah, I
it's like,
I
damn, he
love
looks sick.
this. The moment you just see his silhouette, my wife and I literally our reactions were like, "Yo, it's fucking
Yeah,
Cad
let's
Bane!"
go.
How we knew right away. It was so good.
And he sound like I know that like he sounds different than he did in the Clone Wars, but I think he sounded sick. I was like, he looks awesome. He sounds super menacing. Like he's chef's kiss. I was super into that stuff.
Yeah, I attributed the difference in his voice to this is 30 years from the last time we saw him in the Bad Batch, and I know some people weren't happy with how he looked. I think for the most part he looked awesome. Um, so yeah, I thought him being in the series was so damn cool.
Maybe like to show his age. That's why he is like lighter, like a
Yes,
skin
and
complexion. That's my
that's
thought.
that was my thought too. Is like we're seeing him not his skin not look so blue because he's 30 years older basically.
He's a he's geriatric.
And I as much as I thought Luke's appearance looked fantastic, way better than how he looked in
Oh
Mandalorian. Like
yeah.
one of the things that I noticed with Luke is sometimes his lips when he's speaking or in his mouth looks a little weird.
Mm.
And I bring this up because Cad Bane, when Cad Bane speaks, it's clearly someone wearing like prosthetics. It just looks
But
amazing. It looks
they
so good.
zhuzh up like in post.
Yeah.
Like to make it look even more lifelike. Like seeing
Yeah.
his lips move, you're like you can see that it's there.
Yeah. He was great. And what's the voice actor? I think it's Corey Burton. I think is his name. Just hearing his voice again, so cool.
Yeah, like all the Cad Bane stuff was cool, but it's just that if I'm gonna like pick a top three, you gotta put the Tusken Raider stuff in there because like that was what really interested me about like the Boba Fett stuff. Um,
Grand
I
Moff, I thought the same thing. Him like rolling out of the desert, like man, this guy must been sweating his balls off.
oh yeah, so I mean like that's I thought we were gonna see more of Boba Fett like in the classic costume, like in the flashbacks, because like like the tan undersuit. I thought we would see more of that, because that's like an iconic look. Like it's gonna sound weird to like speak about the physicality of like the look of the character, um, but like I really appreciate like the big helmet and like the thin neck look. Like like when there's a
Yeah.
specific shot in Force Awakens where they're tracking Kylo Ren from like underneath of him, like it's like at almost like waist level, and they're like following him with the Steadicam. Like the visual of like the thin neck, like the big protruding helmet is just like a very striking, interesting look.
Mm-hmm.
And he's popping that helmet off all the time, so I'm like, you just look like a guy holding a fishbowl. I don't know. That's I don't mean to complain the whole time about it because there were things that I enjoyed about it, but my overall feelings on it are probably more negative.
I do have to say, I think I like his. I now I should probably caveat this to where like I pretty much wear nothing but like black, so I
Yeah.
loved his like black Tusken Raider inspired like Boba Fett outfit. I thought it looked so dope.
Oh yeah, that's a really I love that look like when he shows up in like he's wearing the full regalia, he's got the helmet on, he's got like the black underneath of it. I just thought I was gonna see more of like that Return of the Jedi like stuff in the flashback. I when they were doing the flashback stuff, I was like, they're probably gonna show Han in some scene here, like where he's interacting with Han Solo in like the traditional like tan, like the Chelsea looking boot type thing. Um, I am a little disappointed that Han's not in it because that is like his villain, like the overarching bad guy for Han is for Boba Fett is Han Solo, and Han Solo is like afraid of Boba Fett, so it's a bummer that Han wasn't in it at all. I was hoping we'd have more legacy because like Luke doesn't even interact with Boba Fett in the show; he's just in it. So I don't
I
know.
wonder I wonder how those two would react to each other if they saw each other, because like they in is it I can't remember if it's Star Wars or Darth Vader. Like Darth Vader sends Boba Fett out to find out who the person that blew up the Death Star is, and he finds out it's Luke, and then Boba Fett and Luke wind up having like a fight in I think it's Obi-Wan's hut because I
Yeah,
think Luke
yeah.
winds up getting Obi-Wan. That's how Luke gets Obi-Wan's journal. So like they have a history outside of Return of the Jedi. I'm curious how those two would have reacted to each other with like how Boba Fett is kind of more like I don't want to soft might not be the best word, but basically he's not as much of a ruthless murderer by the end of Book of Boba Fett.
I think that was in the mainline Star Wars run. I want to say.
Yeah, it
And no,
might
it
have
may have been
been.
Vader because like it ends with him saying like him just saying Skywalker and he's like all pissed off because he's like
Yeah,
realizing that
yeah.
Palpatine had been lying to him.
Yep.
So that may have been Vader, but yeah, I guess we've been going for a while here. But to kind of wrap it up, is there anything that you would want to touch on before we kind of come to a close? Because Brian's got to get some food in him. At this point, I'm running on like close to 12 hours with nothing in my stomach.
For the moments in the Book of Boba Fett that were definitely fun, there were some really great moments. Chapter 6 was incredible. Chapter 5 was incredible, but there were also some dud moments. I think for me, it was still fun. I still enjoyed it. But I don't think we need another season. I'm okay if they don't do another season.
Yeah, and like you're generally a more positive guy in like the Disney era stuff
Yeah.
than I maybe am. So I feel like that kind of speaks volumes of probably the overall fan sentiment of the Book of Boba Fett in general. Is everyone's like, all right, well, it definitely happened, and we all saw it, so that's something at least. But yeah, is there anything else that you had in your notes that you wanted to touch on?
This is just one more negative thing that I just like thought was so corny that the character's name is Scad. He's the dude that has like the cybernetic eye.
Oh yeah,
In the finale, he just like randomly does this like 360 and then starts shooting, I think, at the pikes. Uh, I had to get that out because I'm like, I got to bring this up. This was like one of the most corny moments of the finale. I didn't understand why he did a random 360 and then fired his blaster.
I mean, he's got to get like his hero shot. I think that's one of the things that Grand Moff was kind of like talking about earlier. Was he was like the the season finale, like the final battle, didn't look great the whole time. Like seeing like Din and Boba fly up with their jetpacks, that's a sick visual. Like that
That
is
was so
awesome.
good.
And seeing, you know, the Rancor pick him up and Boba Fett shoots him or whatever. But I don't think that Grogu needed to be involved at all. Like you just wanted that
Although
shot of him healing, of like him calming down the Rancor. I feel.
I will say that when Din sees that he's got the chainmail, the Beskar chainmail
Hmm.
on, and he's like, you got it." That I love that part.
I mean, it did like pull at my heartstrings, like when like he jumps into Din's arms and like they hug or whatever. Like I mean, I'm a human, obviously, like that stuff affected me or whatever. I was like, oh hell yeah. But I just like you were saying, like the mods or whatever. I didn't know them enough to like really give a shit about whether or not they lived or died. I do feel like they're out of place on Tatooine. Like if they had gone to like Nar Shaddaa or something, because you know the Smuggler's Moon, it would have been pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Boba's like, oh, I'm gonna go back to my old stomping grounds here to like see if I can't find just drum up some people to work for me or whatever. Because like I feel like you would see people who are like implanting cybernetics in them on Nar Shaddaa. Like that would
Hmm.
make sense to me at least. So seeing them on Tatooine, I'm just like, it doesn't feel like that fits the theme of the planet, and it's supposed to be like a
Good
backwater,
point.
like you know,
That,
trashy kind of outer rim planet or whatever.
that's a very good point, man, that I hadn't thought of. They would definitely feel more at home on Nar Shaddaa, or at least they would it look they I feel like they would seem to fit in more on Nar Shaddaa. That's a really good point, man, that I hadn't thought of.
And I just want to get away from Tatooine, just in general. Like I don't
Yeah.
need any more desert planets.
Yeah, start going to new planets, start going to let's see some new worlds, some new things that we haven't seen, or maybe some planets that like Nar Shaddaa in live action would be so freaking cool.
I mean, Nar Shaddaa is like that would be a huge thing for a lot of fans. Like that was my big issue with Robert Rodriguez's episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Is like, oh, we're gonna go to Tython, and like Tython in Legends is like this force wild planet. Like in the Dawn of the Jedi series,
Yeah.
there are like force storms that like come and like and engulf entire cities if the force gets out of balance. And then it's just like a back Hollywood lot in season 2. So it's like you have the technology and the money to make something visually interesting. That's what I meant earlier by the show feels like a CW show. Like it feels like we're clearly in a set. I don't really have like any sort of spatial awareness of what things are going on in the finale. So the finale kind of fell flat for me outside of Boba and Din flying in their jetpacks, and because like the Cad Bane stuff, it happened so quick. It wasn't really that like intense. I knew that Boba Fett wasn't gonna die. Um, I don't know. It felt like pretty toothless.
Yeah.
So if we would have seen like a planet like Nar Shaddaa, that would have added some like gritty visual, not just like visual stuff, but like you're seeing people doing spice, and Boba Fett's like, oh well, I can't have that on my planet. Like these spice heads are, you know, they're smoking death sticks out in the street, and they're like beating each other up and robbing people. Like I don't want that in my town. Like I don't want to have to worry about walking in the streets of my town. Just anything to give him motivation would have been interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. That's a really
Christ.
great point. I wonder if we're gonna get Mando season 3 sooner than we think. At least I hope.
Oh, did we even talk about? Like, we gotta just do these streams more often because like we could just keep talking about Star Wars stuff. But fucking Kenobi coming out
Kenobi, dude,
on
May 25th.
May 25th.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for that. And again, this is one of the things that I love about the prequels, just so many different worlds. And I say this because I hope one of the only things that I'm like really hoping for in Obi-Wan Kenobi is that we do get to see some planets and places that we haven't really gotten to spend a lot of time with, or just some places that maybe are new.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that's what we see because it's obviously the show is going to take place in Tatooine for sure, but I'm hoping that
Yeah.
we get to see like Fortress Inquisitorius in Obi-Wan. Um, I would love to see Mustafar again, but yeah, planets for me, dude. I just like you said with Nar
Is second
Shaddaa, I would love
sister still gonna be alive?
she will be alive at that point because yes, well, actually, no, I take that back. No, she'll be dead because Fallen Order takes place 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, so she'll be gone. But
That's a bummer.
seventh sister, 10th brother, and is it? I think the ninth brother. They'll still be alive, and same thing with the Grand Inquisitor.
Because the Grand Inquisitor, he's been cast. I believe that was a rumor. Is that he'd been cast?
I'm not sure. There was I try to. I really don't. I've stopped reading rumors and stuff because I feel like you can very easily get stuff spoiled.
Oh yeah, like the
The
entire
last
plot of Episode 9 was leaked.
Yeah,
So
and like I know the when I before I stopped reading rumors, like one of the last things I saw was that I can't remember the actress's name. She was in, I believe she was in the Queen's Gambit. Um, she had mentioned something about like using a lightsaber or
ooh,
playing with lightsabers or something like that. So people were speculating she's going to be an Inquisitor, but I'm not sure.
I'd be
I
down
think
for
it'd be
that.
so cool to see the Grand Inquisitor. I mean, I know when there was like that teaser trailer that was released, and one of the images was of an Inquisitor hopping off a starship. So I think we're definitely going to get Inquisitors, which would be so freaking
That'd be
awesome. Second
sick. It'd
Sister,
be
have you played
sick.
Fallen Order 2 or no? Or excuse me, not Fallen Order
Yeah, I
2.
played Fallen Order.
Oh,
Yeah.
Fallen Order is
So
incredible,
good.
and Second Sister is so good. Her
I feel like
theme
that was like
music
the
is
first
incredible.
thing that I had played in the new canon stuff where I was like, yeah, this is it. Like this is what I wanted out of this is like what I wanted out of new canon stuff.
So
Was the second sister story is just incredible.
I'm the opposite of you. I'm not a night owl, and like I would have to force myself to turn the game off and be like, I have to go to sleep now. I got work in the morning
Hmm.
because I would not want to stop playing. That game is so incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that's I'm holding out for Fallen Order 2, and I'm
Yeah.
because that new game I believe is also a High Republic game. I
So yeah,
think.
the Eclipse is going to be a High Republic, but then there was like the other announcement that came out recently. There's gonna was it? I don't think it was last week, maybe the week before, that there's going to be 3 new Star Wars games, and one of them is going to be Fallen Order 2.
God, I am hyped. I'm
Yeah.
super hyped on that stuff. But before we dive into like a bunch of other stuff, we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, seriously. Oh my God, man. I could
We
go
could
on
just
and on
keep
about
going.
Star Wars. Yeah,
But
seriously.
yeah, so that's sort of like our general thoughts on Book of Boba Fett. Hopefully, we weren't too negative on everything. We're trying not to. I think that we both kind of try not to be like too overtly like negative and over the top critical or whatever. But yeah, if you guys have not seen Star Wars Transmissions, and you guys are looking for some quick canon content, or you're looking for like in-depth stuff about Star Wars comic books or books, definitely go check out his channel. I swear I'm going to start uploading some more stuff. I like started to like write out some shorts and all that good stuff, so things will come out eventually. And I appreciate everybody for like sticking around and like staying active and like talking to me or sending me DMs and whatever. It's since like I upload so infrequently. But my plan is to keep covering Star Wars Legacy because that's like my main thing. And then getting into Dawn of the Jedi, that's like another anything John Ostrander in the Star Wars universe I want to cover. So after we finish up Legacy, which is a ways off from being finished, I plan on doing Dawn of the Jedi, making shorts about those comic book characters, those runs, whatever. But Dan, what's your plug for the end of the episode here?
Yo, first off, thanks for having me on here, man. It's always fun to talk Star Wars with you, so thank you. But yeah, if you guys want to check out my channel, it's Star Wars Transmissions. I kind of stopped posting stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and
Mm.
have primarily just been posting stuff on TikTok. So yeah, Star Wars transmissions on YouTube and TikTok, pretty much.
Yeah. Definitely, like, me, your TikTok videos are like killing it. Like, I was looking at
Thanks,
them
man.
on my phone earlier, and I was like, holy I was like, he is really blowing up on TikTok. I was like,
Thanks,
holy
man.
crap,
I
he's killing
appreciate
it.
it.
Yeah, man, for sure. But other than that, I think that about wraps it up. Dan, we got to talk more about getting some streams like going more
Oh yeah.
consistently. But yeah, other than that, it was great hanging out with you guys, and hopefully we get to do it again soon.
Likewise. Take it easy.